Welcome back to the How to Start a Cannabis Farm podcast. My name is Jared, and don't tell anybody, but I'm your motherfucking host, bitch. And today's topic is weed should be expensive. Yes, should be. Not cheap. It should be expensive. For the effect, cannabis, weed, ganja, whatever you want to call it, it's a fucking deal. You can take, for the people that don't really smoke, you can take a goddamn pinch off a little fucking bud, put that shit in a pipe, take one fucking hit, and you are blasted. It doesn't really hold the same for like a sip of beer. Maybe a shot, maybe. But cannabis will fucking keep you high all goddamn day. And I know this for a fact because I've already been sober, been a fucking stoner, probation, had to fucking sober up again, start smoking after I completed all that bullshit. And let me tell you, when you get to a certain sobriety and you start smoking again, one hit is too much. Like, you have to start counting quarter hits and half hits. I mean, like, don't inhale the whole fucking way because a whole hit is too goddamn much because of the potency. Now, I know it sounds crazy to a lot of heavy users, but let's be real. Heavy users may or may not be abusing cannabis in general. Oof, abuse. I know, not a fucking fun subject, but let's be real. Most heavy users out there are abusing cannabis in some way. Now, obviously, abuse can mean many things. It can mean something as you're simply not respecting the plant and you're trying to stay at a certain level of highness all day. We all know that feeling. It's, where you're just fucking floating. And the second you come down, it's like you kind of pop back into reality and you're still stoned, but you're not fucking baked. And so sometimes you just try to stay at that level. That's a very different type of smoking and behavior than, say, just using it to enhance your life, as opposed to a replacement for your life. As in, you're going to go see a movie and you get fucking baked before you see the movie, opposed to just getting shit-faced before you start the day. And I used to do that. I would stay at home for about, an hour, 2 hours straight just fucking smoking until I got to this certain level of highness. And then I would go out and carry out all my shit. And it you start noticing the amount of time and, just time that it takes. I mean, when you're sitting there breaking up fucking bowls, when you're ashing shit out, when you're putting dabs, it's a time-consuming activity. Shit. I mean, for joint smokers out there, like, I'm a joint smoker, I love it, and for me to fucking sit there, grind up all the goddamn shit, if it's trimmed, half the time it's not even goddamn trimmed, so I gotta pull the shit out of the fucking tote, trim that bitch up, then throw it in the grinder. And because my grinder is so big, I gotta grind up, I have to grind the capacity twice just to have enough to fit in my little king size joint. And then, it's about like 1.5 grams, 2 grams that I'm smoking per joint. And so it just takes time. And then to roll that bitch up and then fucking smoke it. Like, when I was sober and I had my other company, I would sit there and I would watch my my partner and my other partners at the time, because they weren't employees, we all worked together kind of equally. When I would watch them smoke when I was sober, I mean, it sounds stupid, but it would take 15 to 30 minutes for the entire activity, from the point of deciding, hey, let's smoke a bowl. Okay, so 3 people, 4 people, however many, they go sit aside and, all right, break it up, everybody's bullshitting, talking. In the meantime, I'm working, and this is just an observation because I've been on both sides of this, but that was the first time where I've actually seen it from the other perspective. Everybody's sitting there smoking, everybody takes a couple hits. Well, you're not going to really be fucking stoned enough to make the break worth it off of one bowl split between 3 people. So it's like you might as well get high so that you be good for a couple hours. So it's usually a couple bowls, and people are stoned and you're just sitting there bullshitting and talking about stuff and fucking aliens and conspiracy theories and plants and whatever. It takes up time, and so you start adding that shit up. And even if it's 30 minutes per break and you only take 2 breaks, I mean, it's still an hour out of the day, or an hour per whatever. So if you're just that morning to lunch, you got, and then the lunch to whatever, it's like 2 hours out of your day of you could be working, but you're just getting stoned. And again, it's a little different depending on your purpose. Now, the other side of heavy users are the people that actually need large amounts for medical purposes. And for them, it's different. I understand that's a quality of life issue, and there is a difference. But when discussing that in relationship to the price of weed and how weed should be expensive for this topic, those heavy medicinal users, they should probably work out something with a grower or become a grower themselves. Now, it's also that term of medicinal where, and here's my perspective on this. I don't think, and you can fucking quote me on this shit, I don't think there's a difference between recreational or medical weed. I think they're all related to the overall quality of life. Recreation is a necessity, and according to, I guess, the definition of medicine technically would be a necessity for the quality of life as well. I don't think there's a difference, and to me, I think it's just a way for people to divide and conquer, if you will. So, that being said, it's my belief that growers, breeders, and patients, people that actually need it, are the only ones that need to use large amounts. Growers and breeders need to use large amounts for different reasons. A higher tolerance allows for minor differences to be noticed, and it's easier to, see, I guess, different ratios of terpenes, or different ratios of terpenes that relate to, the subtle effects of different strains. It's easier for those to be noticed when you have a higher tolerance, opposed to just being fucking shit-faced and having the overall effect prevent you from noticing the subtle effects. There is a need for it, and I understand that. But the growers and the breeders, they're growing it and breeding it themselves, so they have access to it. The patients, I feel like they need to directly work with some of these growers and breeders, because they are also the only people that legitimately need it. And let's be real, as a grower and a breeder, you're not going to smoke everything you grow. It's just fucking impossible. You're just not going to do it. But to have a way that, I guess, a proper channel for giving it away. I didn't want to use the word distribution, but a proper channel for giving it away that supports the infrastructure of the culture. I think that's absolutely necessary, and that definitely needs to be to the patients. Plus, at the same time, growers and breeders, they smoke more per day. It gives them an opportunity to test more samples within a day, which gives them the opportunity to be more productive, since the high doesn't last as long. So it's a slightly different perspective, but I think it's necessary. I think there are certain people that absolutely need to smoke more, but for different reasons. But for everybody else, I think it's abuse. Now, for the effort, for the information, for the lives being lost, people should still be getting paid for that. It took a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of effort to grow top quality cannabis. The information, it takes money, it takes time, it takes effort to create this information, or to figure it out, and to have information from nothing. Lives were lost, generations. I mean, people spent time in jail, people are dead. I unfortunately know a few of those people that are dead, and I lost friends. Many of them have been in jail. I have been in jail as well. There's a lot that that people have done, and unfortunately, because a lot of those people, they were the pioneers in their specific area. They allowed people to have access to product. But because all these new folks are coming in and everybody, and it's becoming increasingly medicinal and recreational, and legalized, I guess, in general, a lot of people are coming in and the prices are dropping because of basic supply and demand, which is unfortunate because the laws of supply and demand they're not laws, they're beliefs. Just because something is prevalent it shouldn't make it cheaper. There's still effort, there's still information, there were still lives lost. It's not a fucking crop. Even though hemp has, and industrial hemp as a definition and the federal government and all this shit, even though they've turned it into a crop, taking cannabis away from what it is, or what it was, where people preached love and light and purity and happiness and all this stuff, taking it from that and turning it into a crop where, I got buddies that, man, I lost a lot of respect for them because I understand they're chasing money, but they themselves have been some of the people to preach a lot of stuff to me about love and this plant and how it changes lives, and yet they've completely disrespected the plant and everything in the chase for money, and they've gone from a couple properties, medical properties, to hundreds of acres of hemp, and they treat it like a crop. They harvest it with giant fucking machines. They bale it up in the same way that straw and cotton and all this shit are baled up. They use the same machinery. It's disgusting. And at the same time, there's a need for it. But we'll get into that a little bit later. But people, they lost a lot. They lost a lot for this plant, and that shouldn't be forgotten, especially the people that did lose. I don't know if you got to start putting your record out there along with your fucking COAs and shit to try to sell weed, but it might be necessary. Anyways, one of the reasons why weed should be expensive, there's a difference now, and there didn't used to be, but it's only because cannabis is grown so much in accepted use and legality. But there's three main positions now in the cannabis culture world, I guess, as far as cultivation is concerned. You have a grower, a farmer, and an operator. A grower, small scale. Usually not a commercial operation. If they are, a grower is usually a position held by an employee. Many people are growers, but they're not farmers. They're definitely not operators. A farmer is small to huge scale, usually a commercial operation. The word family in family farm doesn't determine size, even though people try to use family farm in that relation. It's a fucking marketing trick. God, I hate it. But you can have a giant fucking family. You can have an extremely wealthy family and have a giant fucking farm and say, oh, it's a family farm, and you're trying to play into that craft nature. But a family farm doesn't necessarily determine the size. Family farms are some of the biggest in the country. Let's be real. Anyways, a farmer is usually the owner. Farms are usually owner operated. It's usually a guy working his own property. Now, a farmer, as a position, they're not just focusing on growing like a grower. That's not just their job. A farmer focuses on all aspects of the farm, including cultivation, packaging, distribution, sourcing, security, whatever. They are a business owner. It's a little bit more all-encompassing, but it's a little different. Now, there's a big difference between growing and farming and this next position, the operator. An operator can be a farmer, but they can also be a grower. But not all growers are operators, and not all farmers are operators. An operator is basically a level above a farmer, but it, in a way, removes the grower from the farmer, even though they're technically growers. Basically, an operator operates machinery, and it uses vast amount of automation to grow for them. Technology, somebody else's creation, is now cultivating. The farmer is now just an operator. The job of cultivating is being done by technology, and the farmer is, now can just basically be replaced by an operator. Unfortunately, because of this, it makes it easier to remove people from the overall manufacturing equation. Automation can vastly reduce the cost of crops, and that's great. But what happens is, and you're seeing this year with all of these massive hemp farms, because people have so much fucking product and they're able to produce it at such a low price with operators and machinery opposed to labor. Obviously, their overall cost is low, but it means that they have to fucking sell all of that. And so the only way for them to sell a bunch of it and to make their money quickly and for it to be profitable and all of this shit is to basically undercut people. And that's fucked up. It reduces the overall quality in general. When people use automation, some people think that it helps with standardizing things, but in a craft, in a farming atmosphere, I guess it can do both, in all honesty. But fuck, like, you miss out on the love, you miss out on the passion, you miss out on the intention, you miss out on all of these things that aren't measurable, but we as humans understand their importance. My buddy, Golden Hill Grower, he was telling me about this guy who basically took a drug, and while on this drug, he kept saying the word love, 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 love. And when he finally sobered up, he said, I never knew that love was the one ingredient you can put into everything and make it better. We joke about that. Oh, it's made with love. It's made with love. Machines don't fucking... they don't love. Operators don't love. When you get to a point where you're choosing to focus on profitability and cutting costs so drastically that you're removing people from the equation, that's not love. You don't love what you're doing. You love making money, and that's what you're doing. And it hurts the craft industry because a lot of, like my buddy, some of the best fucking weed I've ever seen. He's an incredible grower, but it removed him from the industry, and so now people, they don't get to enjoy his product, and instead, he's lost some of my respect. And I know he doesn't give a fuck, and whatever. It means a lot to me though, because I didn't have the opportunities that a lot of other people had, and so it took me a long time to get out here and to experience the culture in a different way than I normally had. I only experienced it from the customer side, and so for me to finally be able to do it on a massive level compared to what I've normally done, it's beautiful. But to see the transition that people were making because they got greedy, and everybody wants to be a millionaire, but some people, they're I don't know if they're selling their souls, but anyways, doesn't matter. There's a lot of these people that are that unfortunately are getting defensive about this as well, and I've been told that I'm speaking out against success. And I get what they're saying. I understand it because I understand perspective. But in this manner, they are using the term success as an ego-driven word. In this case, that's being used to define excess wealth. They've been successful. If you've got money to fund a 100-acre fucking hemp farm where your tractor is $100,000, you're successful. And it's unfortunate because this money is causing people to act outside of their normal behavior. If the money wasn't there, they'd still be preaching craft farms. That's the reality of it. They'd still be all about love and producing product that helped people and this and that, and they wouldn't have been disconnected. I remember the same guy when I was telling him about the size of my greenhouse, which was only going to be let's just say an extra 30 feet longer, but I was going to have 4 of them. He was like, dude, you don't need that much, man. You only need just one. This will keep you busy. It's just interesting to see the transition, a year later after he decided to go to hemp. But these really good growers, or unsuccessful growers that have happened to turn into hemp because they can't make it in the rec market, a lot of them have turned into big ag because of this. Again, their treatment of cannabis as a crop rather than a life-changing or saving medicine, their perspective has changed. And unfortunately, a lot of them can't admit it because they're wealthy, and admitting this would make them turn their back on all the millions that they just invested. And so they've basically joined the dark side while preaching light. They're out there, we're trying to save farms, and we're trying to do this and this and this, and we're trying to help people, and we're trying to bring more product to the world. No, we don't need that shit. We don't need it. But at the same fucking time, at the very same time, there's a need for them. I'll get into that a little bit later. But who am I to judge? I'm just a person. Anyways, unfortunately, a lot of the overproduction, it creates price wars, and people begin abusing products due to cheap prices. It's like alcohol and tobacco, and it makes it easy, makes it much more accessible. And so, while these operators have the money to put into this, and they have the product to overcome profit margins, based on volume, they slowly start pushing out some of the small farmers. And it's odd because they're forgetting where they came from, that they were once small as well, and that they didn't like it when all these other big farms and people were doing this and that. It's interesting because being an operator, it's really the only other position that will harm other farmers and growers, whether they believe it or not. You can't be a farmer and harm other farmers unless you turn into an operator. You can't be a grower and harm other growers or farmers until you turn into an operator. It's only when you become greedy and begin focusing on making money does your love and passion for the plant kind of go out the window. But I guess that's what you need. If you wanted to become an operator, if you just wanted to make a fuck ton of money, you have to ignore the passion. You have to ignore the love and only focus on that money. But luckily, their product will never be as good as ours. And that's definitely something to discuss. But as I said earlier, they do play a role. Without these large farms, there wouldn't be enough product for extract, for isolate, for distillate, stuff to be put into edibles. And because of that, pricing would be higher. And yeah, farmers and growers would be making more money. But the consumer, let's think about the consumer. The consumer would be paying more money. And let's be real, it's a fucking plant, right? It's a plant. There wouldn't be a large amount of biomass for textiles and fiber and plastics. There wouldn't be enough for, who knows? Something that I'm not thinking of because the industry is just starting. But at the same time, there is a use, but this is an industry that was started by the culture. And a lot of these operators, a lot of them came from the culture. A lot of them didn't. A lot of them could care less. There's so many fucking stories that I'm hearing this year about operators, who are really producing seed. They're completely seeding medical and rec gardens. And when the medical gardens and these rec gardens try to talk to their neighbors about it, they're just like, fuck you. Do what we want. It's an agricultural crop. What are you going to do about it? And it's all about legality. And that's the shitty part, is it's gone away from love and respect and looking out for your neighbors to look out for yourself. Be that guy. I guess with this, if you were to take out the operator, that would bring pricing up. It would also, unfortunately, make it more difficult for people to have access. Cheap medicine, but their access wouldn't change. People have always had access to cannabis. They've always had access to it. Would it allow for the economy to grow? Probably. At least in my opinion. Simply through the fact that it would allow more money to stay on the table. It would give other people in certain geographic regions a better chance at building their economy up, their microeconomy. Instead of having all of this product from California and Oregon and Kentucky and Maine and fucking wherever shipped everywhere, maybe everybody could just get off their own ass and produce their own stuff for their own little region, and we'd all be fine. There wouldn't be any billionaire hemp families, but maybe there would be a bunch of $50,000, $60,000, $90,000, $100,000 families, and that's better than nothing. It's better than everybody just being forced to work for people because money is unfortunately swaying people. But it's a little, I don't know, it's kind of a darker one, but it's definitely an opinion. Weed should be expensive. Thank you for listening to How to Start a Cannabis Farm podcast. Look forward to the next one.